Hey everybody, what's going on? Helmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today is a little bit late getting this video up. I unfortunately was out doing some stuff today, but I'm finally here, and today we're going to be talking about something that is coming up shortly. We've gotten a few hints and bits and pieces, and Riot said it was going to happen before the end of the year. Turns out it isn't, and of course, that is the Warwick rework. Now, it has been confirmed that Warwick is the next champion being reworked, and especially Riot was talking about a few months ago that it was going to happen before the end of the year. Now, they have since reissued their statement saying it's not going to happen this year, will probably be early next year. And especially looking at the Piltover lore event that recently happened with the whole slider timeline up at the top, the slider eventually ends in Zaun. And now, if you're unaware, Warwick is a Zaun champion, so it's very likely that Warwick's rework will come out sometime during this hypothetical Zaun update, I guess you could say, that's coming up. So, today I'm going to be talking about Warwick's current state, the issues he has that the rework needs to address, and where I see him falling once the rework actually lands to live. Now, Warwick at the moment is not a very good champion. The issues he has are many. The biggest problem being that drain tanking in League of Legends is a difficult thing to balance. If you think about champions that are drain tanks, things like Vladimir, Swain, Aatrox, Xin Zhao, not really Xin Zhao as much, but tanks that basically exist by stealing health from their opponent's health pools to bolster their own. So they're dealing damage. By dealing damage, they're healing, and by healing, they're staying alive to deal more damage. They're not necessarily built that tanky. In fact, Aatrox is usually built with a lot more damage, or they have ways of converting health to damage, those kinds of things. But the fact that they can lifesteal so much is what keeps them alive. Warwick is in this kind of category. Now, the biggest issue with Warwick is that he's incredibly binary. Hungering Strike is a targeted ability that steals a decent chunk of health. Infinite Duress is a targeted suppression for 2.5 seconds, which is a frankly insane ability if he can get range for it. And these abilities all make Warwick very strong. However, the biggest issue with Warwick is that he is binary. If he gets behind, there's nothing he can do. He'll ult into the middle of a fight and instantly die. And without his ult, the only recourse of action he has is to run at the enemy team and hope he doesn't get kited. He's not even Juggernaut level of Garen having a speed boost or Darius having a pull. He's straight up just movement speed, especially if you're starting the fight with everyone at full health, because then not even Blood Scent helps him close the gap. That's not to say Warwick doesn't bring his useful tools to the table. Blood Scent's global reveal is really, really useful for Warwick, and it's a lot of invisible power that Warwick has that isn't properly, I guess, appreciated or noticed, and that's one of the biggest problems he has, is that he has this big global reveal, which is a really, really powerful ability, but few people notice it, and that's the ability that's keeping Warwick's power budget fairly low. The other big issue is, as a drain tank, like I said, he's binary. If he's ahead, he lifesteals so much that you can never kill him. If he's behind, he has no chance of dealing enough damage to keep on going. So, he's in need of a rework, both for counterplay reasons and for game health reasons. And for his own character, really. I think Warwick is definitely dated. He could use a visual rework pretty badly. So, he's a good candidate. Riot have said they're working on him. He's one of the few champions left that we really need a rework for. After that, we start getting the champions that could use one, like Aurelia, Caitlyn, those kinds of things. So, anyways, talking about Warwick, what do we need out of a rework? The first thing that has to happen is Warwick needs better counterplay. So, his ultimate will likely become less easy to use, I should say. Less reliable, I think, is the way I want to phrase it. Ideally, it won't be point and click. Now, we have a few ideas about how his ultimate might work. Maybe it's a dash of some kind, where he CCs a target. Maybe it's something like Vi, where it's still targeted, but at least it's got travel time. Something along those lines, but something that makes it a lot more easy, a lot more easily counterplayed, so, but ideally with a higher payoff for it. The other thing Warwick really needs is other ways to succeed when his ultimate is down. Right now, Warwick literally can't gank before, 6. He has his only option is to hope that the enemy team is pushed up and that he's able to get in range long enough for Braum or somebody to set him up with a hook or a stun or something, because otherwise the best he can do is apply red buff, and that's about it. And that's best case scenario, the enemy team is really pushed up. If they're even in the lane, Warwick will do nothing by showing up in lane. He has no way of getting in. So, those are the two biggest problems facing Warwick. I think drain tanks can be properly balanced if you can figure out their sustain issues, but the binary nature of Warwick's kit is one of the biggest problems I have with him, especially given that he's super mana-gated in the jungle with Hungering Strike taking up a large portion of his power budget, which leaves the rest of his kit feeling pretty bad. I did also forget to mention the fact that he's got a team-wide attack speed steroid is pretty good in the right comps, and it's another reason why Warwick suffers and doesn't feel very good to play, because he has all these sort of global effects that he doesn't necessarily always appreciate, but that are still strong and taking up a lot of power. So, those are kind of my thoughts going forward. Now, I am cheating here a little bit, because Xenon the Stoic did publish a Warwick prototype kit all the way back, I think, in 2013. And originally, this was slated to be released in 2014, and Riot's priorities were since reshuffled around. However, I did find it, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what Xenon the Stoic was doing with this kit rework, and kind of how I think it helped solve Warwick's problems, and whether or not I think that kind of kit is still in development. Now, Warwick's passive had been slightly changed. Now, I don't remember what it originally does. I know it gives you lifesteal and deals bonus damage, but basically Warwick's passive in the rework would deal 2% of the target's max HP as magic damage and heal Warwick for a flat amount based on his plus part of his bonus HP, scaling with champion level. Every time the passive is procced, he gains a stack of Eternal Thirst, and each stack of Eternal Thirst increases the self-heal effects by 11%. However, stacks fall off after 1.8 seconds, which is just enough time to keep the buff alive at the lowest attack speed that you have. What this means is that Warwick's lifesteal doesn't start at 100%. He has to build up his lifesteal over time, but if he's able to stick to targets long enough and keep hitting them, he'll be lifestealing a whole bunch and you'll never be able to kill him. I really like this because Warwick's passive falls off really, really quickly. They fall off 4 stacks per second, which means that unless he's hitting someone constantly, he will never have enough stacks to be fully to keep lifestealing. Now, this is both good and bad. The good about it is that Warwick has access to the truly insane amounts of lifesteal that he needs to function as a champion. The bad is that one passing stun and Warwick loses most of the effort he just put in. Now, I don't know if he builds a lot of attack speed like Blade of the Ruin King, if he can get a ton of stacks and be really, really hard to deal with immediately, but it does seem like an interesting idea and a good way of meaningfully gating Warwick's healing. The Q, Xenon the Stoic, had changed into a double attack on a nearby enemy target. Basically an auto attack. Now, it doesn't apply AD. Instead, it deals magic damage and procs on hits and passive. Which is weird, but the thing is it's a trade-off, so Warwick doesn't do too much insane upfront damage while also giving him good sustain. Now, this is a good way for Warwick to start building stacks of his passive much more quickly. And it's basically give me stacks and healing right now. It pretty much operates the same in function, but it is reworked a little bit to function with the passive. So we'll go on. The W, which doesn't really have a name or didn't have a name at the time of Xenon the Stoic's rework, was an area of effect Terrify away from the center of the effect, not from the center of Warwick, which is important when we get to his E. Now, this is really, really powerful, as it was a 0.75 second duration on the Terrify and the follow-up slow. So this is pretty powerful, because if Warwick can get into the middle of the enemy team, pop the W, he can scatter the enemy team comp and make it difficult for them to respond to his follow-up, or to his kind of initiation. This also makes Warwick really, really deadly in conjunction with Vanguard tanks that can close the gap and get a fight started. Warwick is really intended to be a diver. He should be looking for squishy targets to annihilate, and this is a good way to get him to get him some value as a fighter, to give him a little bit more time with a target he really wants to kill. It also means that you can't really ignore him in a fight, because otherwise he'll terrify your whole team, and that would be bad for everyone. Warwick's E is a passive and an active. The E first starts with Blood Scent. So it gives you a little bit more range, and gives you an Oriana ball type indicator to let you know where the nearest enemy champion is. The movement speed also slowly increases as you get closer. So if you're super far away, you'll be moving about your same movement speed, but once you close the gap, you'll be moving pretty quickly. Basically the same, and that's one of the main reasons you play Warwick. However, the active is called Hamstring. You start at point A, you click on point B, and then Warwick goes A, B, A very, very quickly. Any enemy units he touches are damaged and hamstrung very quickly. So it's like a Taloned E effect, where you're slowed by a ton, but very, very briefly. The key thing about this ability is that you can activate your W while you're doing the boomerang. So Warwick can dash into the middle of an enemy team, terrify people to get them all out of orbit, and then bounce back to his original location. This also has some interesting applications in the jungle, being able to bounce over a wall, smite a blue buff, and then return to your original position. It's a powerful ability, but also interesting, as that it can't be used as really a kind of mobility, because it's not like a Vi Volt Breaker that closes the gap on a target immediately. Warwick needs to be sneaky with how he uses the ability, and I really like this. I think it's an interesting ability. I would love it for it to come back onto Warwick's prototype, or Warwick's reworked kit. I think it has a lot of potential, and it solves a lot of his issues, especially ganking pre-6. Being able to dash at somebody, terrify them away, and then run at them with your Blood Scent on. Finally, Warwick's ult. Xenon did do the kinds of things I was talking about. The ultimate is now a dash in a target direction. The first enemy hit, Warwick stuns, and slashes at and builds a ton of stacks all at the same time. Now, this is really powerful in that it can deal basically a total of 18% of the target's maximum health, so very good against tanks who body block for their targets, and it's essentially the same ult. You're still locking someone down for a long period of time. Xenon had removed the suppression effect because suppressions are super low counterplay and not fun for anybody involved. However, since Riot didn't remove the suppression on Malzahar's ult when they reworked him, or the suppression on Urgot's ult when they were working on him, I am fairly doubtful that the rework will remove it. However, I do think that it would probably be a good idea to move. Either way, I do like the ultimate. It also has the added benefit of being an escape move for Warwick. However, it'll feel pretty bad to use it, like when you use a Malphite Unstoppable Force to get out of a bad situation. But that's just kind of the price you pay. But, so imagine this. The Warwick goes in with his E over the wall or something, terrifies the enemy team, gets everyone spread out, and then has a free shot at the newly abandoned AD carry while the rest of his team is still terrified. That could be pretty good. And I think that solves a lot of his issues. It gives Warwick a way into fights. It gives him a reason to be picked beyond a team-wide attack speed buff that nobody noticed or cared about anyways. And I think that it helps reinforce his place as a diver. Now, obviously, this is a prototype from years ago, so who's to say whether or not it still exists in any form? We won't know. However, we do have the rework coming up, and it's interesting to think about these kinds of things as it approaches. Let me know your guys' thoughts on Warwick Rework, anything that you might want to see in Warwick's kit going forward. I would love to hear from you guys. Please hit the like button. Please hit that like button on this video if you enjoyed it, and that subscribe if you like this kind of content, as it does help support me in what I do. If you'd like to read some more Grab the Lantern, go ahead and click that link in the description. It'll bring you right to the blog where I publish an article just about every other day. Thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll talk to y'all later.